Mr. Huber, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good this morning. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Market's up. I mean, we've been tired of talking about how down it is every day, so at least we get a chance to say something good here this morning, at least for a while. I mean, it can sort of change. But so I read your letter to the Tribune and the Times, and obviously we've talked, a lot about the tension. I mean, we might as well be truthful. The tension on some of the pension funds, and obviously brought upon by a lot of the Wisconsin situation and some of the stuff in Ohio, and a lot of people are taking a lot of arrows that they never really thought they were going to take arrows because they probably don't deserve to take arrows, but they sort of are. And I just thought we'd have you on, and maybe I don't think we're gonna solve everybody's problems about everything, but maybe we get a few facts on the table. At least maybe when people argue about things over drinks, they can maybe have a fact or two, which would be nice.
Sure.
I guess. I'll let you explain how the system works. And I have a question. We talked about it when the show first started. What is the history of a lot of? And I think it started with railroad retirement. What is the history of essentially municipal and state funds not participating in Social Security? Is it? I mean, is that an advantage, you think, or just where did that come from?
No, well, I think it's an advantage for the employer, obviously, and I think that's what's gotten us into the problems. A simple fact of solving the problem is the employer would at least put in what they put into Social Security in these plans that are non-contributory to Social Security. You'd have a heck of a lot better funding ratios, at least for Chicago teachers. Back in the 30s was when it was decided. Obviously, Social Security came out, and then the states and the municipalities had the decision if they're going to participate in Social Security or not. And some did, most didn't. Most police, fire, and teachers decided not to. And really, like I said, I think that gives a huge advantage to the employer. Just looking at our employer, Chicago Public Schools, for a decade, 95 to 2005, not a contribution into the pension fund, not a contribution to Social Security. Take 6% of their payroll back then. That was probably, let's say, 150, 200 million that they were able to save and not put into anybody's retirement plan.
Well, how do you have a deal and they just not put it in? I don't know. How does that work?
Well, you get in your cars and you go down to Springfield.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems. Well, I mean, it's not just you guys. I mean, General Motors. I mean, they had a union deal and they didn't put the money up for anything either. I guess I'm curious, how do you get away with that?
Well, again, if you look at the private sector, obviously they're governed by ERISA, a little bit different. They have certain minimums. If you look at the public sector, depending if you're a state like Illinois or, you have other states, Colorado, Ohio, and things of that nature, if you have what's called that, and this is where it gets what's called a little squishy, the constitutional guarantee, right?
Yeah.
And the Illinois Constitution guarantees, at least one side of the argument, obviously, that guarantees public pensions from the day you start. So once I work that first day in a public pension, technically I'm guaranteed the benefits provided to me.
Well, yeah, I almost want to, if anybody should be the fixture of anybody's pointed finger, I mean, I almost want to go back to all the people who voted not to make the contribution and say, give us the dough. I mean, what kind of stewardship is that?
Well, and again, and that's a problem. I was actually looking at some financial reports last night, and I looked at over the last 10 years. I'll just give you some quick numbers, because you asked how a pension fund works. It's really easy. You get money from the employer. You take money from the employees. They don't have a choice. And I invest it. So over the last 10 years, we brought in $6 billion.
From the teachers?
No, $6 billion in total revenue, and that includes investment earnings.
Okay.
About $1 billion from the employer, $2 billion from the employees, and then $3 billion from investment earnings.
And that's in how many years?
That's over a decade.
So what's the entire amount in the fund?
The fund's sitting here about $10 billion right now. Because again, we burn off about $1 billion, pay about $1 billion a year in pensions and refunds and things of that nature.
So you guys are earning about 5% a year, maybe.
No, over that decade we earned 5. Over the last 20 years we earned about 8.5. And so, one of the advantages you hear a lot of people talk about. Well, you got to move all these public employees into defined contributions. We hear that argument all the time. Well, the problem with defined contributions, they're not proven yet. Because those just started in the late 80s. Those people are, they're starting to retire. But I'm going to tell you something. That model doesn't work. I would not want my teachers trying to make investments. I don't even want to make investments, and I think I might know a little bit about what to do in the markets.
It's I mean, I have a little, well, I guess more of a view than most, but I think that some of the time, it could work. What you guys are trying to do. I mean, obviously, some of the people who manage the stuff and some of the fees, I think are a little high. But that's just me. I mean, because it can be a little political on the other side as well, on the management side. I mean, I think you at least have to, sort of say, well, that's possible. I mean, it's not like, the people who run the funds. I mean, I know to get on. Let's put it this way: our firm has tried to break into some of the state stuff, and the kickbacks we had to pay, or were asked to pay, just to get in front of people were pretty awful. And so it's not exactly a spot where somebody can walk in and say, by the way, what these guys are doing, I'll do cheaper, and maybe do a better job. It's pretty hard to break in, but that's a small piece of it. So I'm not going to get on that road. But I just wonder if the state is or the city is going to kind of mess around with this, and if say you were 70% funded, would an option be, hey, just give us the dough, rather than screw around with it longer and is that an option?
Well, that's actually the best option, but they can't do it. We've done some analysis on this one, and you got to get the cash up front.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but they don't have the cash to give, so you could save the taxpayers, and I'm just going to talk about ourselves over the next 40 years. Okay, 40 years, taxpayers are going to have to put in $60 billion. $60 billion. If you give the money up front, you can save them about $35 billion over that period of time.
Well, I'm not talking about full funded. Would you, even if it's 60% funded right now, which I'm guessing probably where you guys are? Is that fair?
I think that's right.
All right. I'd almost, if I was in your shoes, I'd almost say, you know what? Give me the 60. Give me a 50% match going forward, and I'll get you guys totally out of this whole mess, and we'll do it ourselves. I'm not close enough to the numbers to say I would do it, but the thought had crossed my mind. Instead of be hanging around with the vagaries of this thing, because what if you don't mind my asking, what number is your if everything was straight? When I say straight, if they were actually giving you a contribution every year, what is your investment number you think you can make going forward?
No, sure. I think that's right. I think we can probably get between 7 and 8. I don't think everybody's. You have these educators who say, "Well, you can't get more than 4 or 5." Well, wait a minute. From 1991 to 2011, a lot of things have happened in the world. We've had September 11th. We've had 2 wars. We've had 2 or 3 recessions. I got about 8.4%. That's net. Okay, that's not great. That's not bad. But I think I can get you between 7 and 8. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to get you 9 or 10. We're not making those types of investments. We won't do that. You need to structure the portfolio pretty conservatively. A lot of index funds, a lot of diversification. We're moving into infrastructure. That kicks off a nice cash on cash. So I don't like these guys who are saying 5%. I think that's once again misleading the public and trying to make pension funds look like it's just a huge black hole.
Well, I would say that if you and I were counseling over a beer, I would counsel you lower, especially since the Federal Reserve is bound and determined to make risk-free money like negative.
Well, yeah, I know. Free money is it's an amazing thing nowadays on the markets, isn't it?
Because it really affects. I run a protected index program, which is designed exceptionally well, but we use a lot of options, okay, to hedge portfolios and so forth. Well, just the effect it has on call and put prices.
Oh no!
Your call prices are way cheaper. It is very, very difficult unless we're sort of lost. If you guys were smart enough or lucky enough or whatever it is to be in the 25 multinationals, which seem to be able to go forward at least until now, despite what the rest of society is doing. I don't know if you can bank on that happening for the next 10 years. That the market somehow will do fine. We seem to have stagnated right here. We went from March of '98 to March of 2008, and the S&P was even. It's a pretty tough to make 7-8% when that's happening.
Yeah, but on the counter side, I also can't go out there and gamble away the pension fund money. So you're right to some extent. But if I flip it on you, what do you think my rate of return should be?
No, I'm way more conservative than you guys. I'm not. That's not what I'm arguing. What I'm saying is I think that 7 or 8 is boy, if you can do that, my hat's off to you, my friend, because I mean, back in the day, you know, when I worked for Pullman way back when, and they had a pension just like you guys do, and boy, their number was like 4, you know, because the risk-free rate was 3, you know, and the market was pumping out, you know, 3 or 4 a year, and they thought, you know, the conservative number. The last thing you want to do is say 8 and make 2 and be short.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think back then also they were kicking in a lot of bonds. I think we didn't start really probably prior to '91. We were mostly fixed income, and then, you know, in '91 a little bit more equity. Then you started seeing us move a little international, and then you saw us moving into some real estate, and then you migrated into, you know, a few more alternatives, a little private equity. And amazingly enough, we're kind of moving the needle a little bit more into the international space again, you know, farther on the international scale.